Hello everyone, just a little quick disclaimer before this week's episode. We did record this on Tuesday evening as it was the only time we had available this week. So we did record before the club announced their decision to close a section of the Paddock in response to the incident that took place in the Leyton Orient game a couple of weeks ago. So we don't mention it at all in this episode. I'm speaking as someone who stands in that section. Suffice to say, I'm not happy about, in fact, borderline furious about the decision by the club. And the way the fans are being treated. We will be discussing it on next week's episode, I'm sure. So, if you're wondering why it just doesn't get covered, that's the reason. Okay, thanks and enjoy the episode.
Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Brunton Bugle, number one place to get a Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Mike Booth.
United get back to winning ways on Merseyside as informed Tranmere comfortably seen off. We look back on the impressive 2-0 win in Wirral last weekend, while looking ahead to the return tie against Rovers in the FA Cup and the midweek trip to North Yorkshire to take on bogey team Harrogate Town in League 2. Yes, ye of little faith, eh? The ones who thought the wheels were off, I heard someone saying, in terms of nonsense. Always back the Blues, always back Super Paul Simpson. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm a bit worried, to be honest. I think you need to calm down a little bit because while it was a good result, I'm just concerned 3 weeks' time when we lose Moxon, Dennis and Mellish for the World Cup squad. I think we're going to be really tight.
It's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a struggle, isn't it? It's I mean, just... what a way to respond, especially with more injury issues and more illnesses and things like that, and to put in a performance like that and by all accounts be very comfortable. I've watched back a large chunk of the game and it really, we keep saying it, but it really does put us in good stead for when we actually have more of a squad to pick for. I really feel for Paul Simpson actually, because once he had these players fit, how's he going to actually pick a squad? It's going to be a nightmare, isn't it?
But I think he said himself he'd rather be in that situation with them headaches than the situation he's in now.
Well, that says enough, doesn't it? Yeah. So on today's show, we're going to be doing the usual stuff in terms of reviewing the Tranmere Rovers game, but then we'll be looking ahead to the Tranmere Rovers game as it is next weekend in the FA Cup. But we're going to do something a bit different than that because obviously we've talked about Tranmere in the squad already. We might cover it a little bit, but we're going to maybe talk a little bit generally about the FA Cup first round and what it means to us and that kind of thing, and potential future developments in the FA Cup, because we've heard about stuff like replays being scrapped, which I think would be a travesty, frankly. But we'll talk about bits like that. We'll also have a little look into the Harrogate League game in midweek because we're not going to have time to preview that before the game. But both me and you are going to that match, aren't we, Mike? You've got the day off for that one, so new ground for you to tick off. New ground for me to tick off, actually, to be fair. So, it'll be a nice one, that one, won't it? So, there you go. So, that's what we're going to be covering on today's show. But first up, the usual stuff in terms of the messages. So, once again, this season, the podcast has been sponsored by the Carlisle United Supporters Club London branch. The London branch is open to all Carlisle United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee and Houston to Singapore, and, of course, every part of London and the South East. They regularly meet up on away trips, as well as arranging many social events, sports games, and fundraising for the club. They'll be providing us with information for the away games as part of their preview section this season too. You can find out more about London Branch at their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org. Also, remember, if you don't already, subscribe to the podcast. If you don't, why don't you? Because it must be an absolute pain to go and find the link every single week, doesn't it? Really? I was thinking that, but there you go. So if you've got a mobile phone, whatever podcast app you use, search for the Brunton Bugle, click subscribe. Every time a new episode comes out, you'll get a little alert. You can download it and you can listen to it at your leisure on the move. Also, as well, on any of those apps or sites, if there's a chance to review us, if you can give us a good review, a 5-star review, whatever, that'd be fantastic. If you want to give us a slightly negative one, then feel free. give us some comments on what can we do better that we already do. So there you go. Social media wise as well, obviously we're on the usual channels at Brunton Bugle on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Find us on Facebook. Just search for Brunton Bugle. Click like, and you can email us bruntonbugle@gmail.com. And we're on the Facebook group, Be Just and Fear Not. It's a great group. There's over 3,000 people on there now. It's well worth joining. Really good United community there. And the Cumbrians.net message, well, we also post on there. Right, Mike, let's get into a very brief news roundup. It's mostly a lone watch, and it's going to be quite a quick one this week because only 3 of the lads were in action. So Sam Fishburn, he didn't feature it for Morpeth Town because Morpeth Town didn't play this weekend. So a weekend off for them. I think basically their opponents for that weekend were actually in the FA Trophy, I think, so they were able to play. They're back in action, though, this Saturday when they face Merseyside side Marine at home. Max Kilsby, he missed Gretna's Scottish FA Cup shock defeat. Well, not really shock defeat because Pollock are a decent junior side. Although arguably not a league side, so yeah, but I suppose it is a shock. Defeat to Pollock in the FA Cup. He had flu, it turns out. He returned to the starting lineup for Annan's league game, though, and played the full 90 minutes. But unfortunately, they went down to a 1-0 defeat to promotion-chasing Dumbarton. It sounds like they were quite tight in this game. They hit the bar a few times and a little bit unlucky, a team right up at the top, but it does leave them bottom of the table on goal difference.
Murph's under a bit of pressure there, isn't he?
He is, and I kind of feel for him because he obviously lost Moxon. I think he lost a couple of others as well. And
that's the thing. You see how Moxon can dictate a game at our level, at that level. It must have been like watching Pele.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, Matty Douglas is a really big player, ex-United youth player as well. He's another big player for Adam. He's someone who's been a real big part of their success in recent years, and he's been out injured with I think he had a knee injury, had some surgery or something in pre-season, so without him, they're really struggling. I don't think Stephen Swinglehurst has featured as much as he has done in the past as well, so it's tough for them. It's a tough learning curve for Max as well, is it, I suppose, having to come into that environment, but good that he's getting game time. That's the key thing. We keep saying this, but really good that he's getting game time. Big game for them this weekend, though. They face fellow strugglers Forfar. I think they're only a couple of places above them in the league and maybe 1 point above them, so that's one way I suppose they'll be looking desperately to get a win.
Yeah.
Lewis Bell made another appearance, got another 90 minutes actually for Gretna 2008. Unfortunately, it's another big defeat for them at home, though. They lost 4-1 to Bowness United. 2 more games for him this week, though. Tomorrow, because we're recording on Tuesday, I should say here, by the way. They travel, I love this team name, Open Goal Broomhill. I mean, who comes up with that name? It's just genius, isn't it? It's brilliant. In midweek, before they host Spartans FC next weekend at Brunton Park. And finally, Lewis Boyd, the United's youth keeper, he made his 7th appearance for Carlisle City in his work experience loan, our City neighbours. But it ended in defeat, unfortunately. There was a late winner for Newton Aycliffe. They won 2-1. I think Newton Aycliffe are third in the league, and I think Carlisle City are firmly mid-table. So disappointing, but maybe not a totally unexpected defeat, I suppose, in that sense. But he's in action tonight, isn't he, as well, Mike? He's playing in the FA Youth Cup game tonight.
Yeah, exactly. That's going on right now, isn't it?
Yeah, literally as we record. So what we'll do is we will we'll do a little review of that next week, maybe on the show, possibly, and give them a bit of a shout out as well. Hopefully they can see off Fleetwood and get themselves into the next round, where they face either Stockport County or I think it was Harrogate Town away. One of the two. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but I think Stockport was definitely one of them. So there you go. But yeah, good luck to the youth lads tonight. So let's get into the match review then, Mike. Tranmere Rovers 0, Cal United 2. What a way to bounce back from 2 consecutive defeats. It was a weird one going into this game because I wasn't confident at all, and that's not so much I think we're a bad side. I just had this. My head was saying we're going to lose this one. My heart went with a draw in the predictions, but my head was saying I think we'll lose this, and it's just a case of the injuries and everything catching up on us. So
Brunton Park has been a very tough place to go, hasn't it, in the past sort of couple of years or so, and without sort of disrespecting any of the players that played, I think that's the weakest team we've put out all season. Now, I'm not saying it's weak, I'm saying it's the weakest in comparison to other teams we've put out. And, what a result. And by all accounts, they were just tactically outmastered and they just weren't in the game and we battered them.
It sounds like the players who've come in were just switched on and ready to play. And quite often you don't find that, do you? You find players, I don't know, they come in and they just don't look like they're ready for it. But these lads really stepped up to the plate. And like you said, Tranmere, I've always had a pretty decent home record. They've always been very solid defensively under Mickey Mellon. And yet, we just looked comfortable in this game, didn't we? It was a strange one. It's really, really positive, wasn't it? Let's get into it then. So I was at a wedding on Saturday, so I was sort of half following this through updates on my phone. Wasn't even on my phone; it was on my watch. I set the notifications on, so I didn't even have to look at my phone, so I couldn't be accused of doing that during the food at the wedding. And as I was sitting down waiting for the soup to come, the soups were getting served. A little alert on my phone 1 minute in. Bloody hell, we scored. Amazing. But let's talk about the team selection. So Gibson was out suspended, and then the morning of the game, we obviously found out once the teams were announced, Finn Back had to pull out due to illness. So Simo went and made 4 changes from the team that started against Stockport, and they were Jack Stretton coming in for Jaden Harris, Huntington coming back in for Whelan, then Jack Ellis in for Back, which we obviously expect. But then the surprise one, I suppose you'd say, was Taylor Charters coming in for Jordan Gibson. Were you slightly surprised that he got the nod over Harris?
Yeah, a little bit, I suppose.
Not saying that we didn't think he should have got a start.
Yeah.
It's more a case of the way things have been going. Harris has been used, especially when there's a bit of a physical battle. But Simo back Charters, didn't he?
Yeah, well, he's been coming back from injury, hasn't he, Charters? And he's a player that I've always rated. And it's good to see him, grab his chance with both hands, as Paul Simpson said.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously playing he's been used a little bit as left wing back in some of the games he's played this season, and that's more out of a case of being able to give Jack Armour a rest in the trophy games, isn't it? I think as much as anything. But in this case, he started the game more as a left sort of winger, wasn't it? Almost, or it was almost like a 4. I've got the formation down as a 3-4-3. We're obviously Feeney, Huntington and Mellish as your back 3, your wing backs of Back and Armour, and then like a midfield 2 of Moxon and Guy with Charters one side of Dennis and Stretton the other, almost is what the impression I got from watching it.
Yeah, well, by all accounts, we pinned Charters against their right back, who was somewhat vertically challenged, and Charters is about 6'1", I think.
Yeah,
and he won a lot of aerial challenges in that, and it was sort of a key part to our game plan, really. And honestly, I know we're a little bit off talking about this yet, but I wouldn't be too surprised if Charters actually started in the FA Cup game as well.
Well, yeah, we'll get onto that in the second half of the show when we preview that game, Mike. But it's an interesting point, one worth discussing later. Let's talk about the goals and the chances then. I mean, couldn't have asked for a better start, could we? Really? Tranmere were actually on the attack early on, weren't they? I think they had the kickoff, and they got forward, and Mellish did. I thought Mellish has become so good at this recently. He just stepped in, won the ball, but not only won the ball, he kind of made sure that it would go to Charters as well, didn't he? I feel like it was not so much deliberate, but it gave Charters a chance to get the ball, didn't he?
Yeah, it's something that we've lacked. I tell you who we last had who was good at it, Kelvin Atuhu, in that he'd turn opposition attacks straight into our attacks straight away. There was like no transition period, Yeah. And he's done it a couple of times this season, Mellish. And yeah, it just sort of wins the ball. And then it was a great ball from Guy over the top, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was brilliant. So it's obviously Charters plays it to Moxon, and Moxon takes his time, sets himself, picks out Guy, and then Guy's ball is terrific for Stretton. And it's a great run from Jack Stretton. It's got to be said to peel off his marker, get to the... Cause I wonder if... I think Tranmere were anticipating we were playing a 5-3-2 or a 3-5-2 in this, and Charters would be a bit deeper, and Stretton would be up front alongside Dennis. But actually, as it was, Stretton drifted out wide very early. He got himself out wide, found himself in space, gets the ball, takes a good touch, and then it's strange because it's not like it's a precision. He's not the way he's played the ball in. He hasn't sort of side-footed or tried to curl it or anything, but he hasn't totally lashed it. But he's just hit it. He said, "Right, I'm going to put it in an area there. You have a go at it."
But as a defender, defending against balls like that is a nightmare, because people have sort of slagged off Samu because he didn't get in the way. But if he'd have got something on that, he could have very easily turned it into his own net.
I think Simu could have done a little bit better, though.
He could have done better. I'm not disputing that, but it was a fantastic ball in.
Simu is caught a bit in two minds now. I think, actually, to be fair, give Simu a bit of credit here. He's caught in two minds. Do I go and try and intercept the potential ball in, or do I track Christian Dennis? Because the problem is, if you look behind him, the right back or the other centre back, I don't know if it's the centre back or the right back, but Jack Armour is getting right up there. So if Christian Dennis doesn't get on it, Jack Armour's getting on it. So basically, one of the defenders gets dragged to him, which leaves Simu basically in no man's land between, do I stop the ball or do I stop Dennis? As he is, he didn't do either.
Yeah.
And Christian slides in for an easy tap in, and he certainly enjoyed milking it in front of the home fans, as he always does, doesn't he? He loves that, doesn't he? He's well up.
Yeah, well, like Jack Armour was giving it some as well.
He's
and like
in the stand.
Yeah. Well, like you understand that sometimes in a game where the home fans have been given the players stick for like 60 minutes and then we score kind of thing. And honestly, I know Simo's a nice bloke and all that, but I wouldn't put it past him having that as our game plan a little bit and turning the Tranmere crowd against the team. Yeah. And because by all accounts, that's what happened. And they were sort of really booing them, and we forced them to change their entire system.
Yeah, exactly, because they just couldn't cope with us, could they? On to other chances in the first half. Very nearly made it 2-0 not too long after that, didn't we? Nice little flick on, I think, from Armour it was, and then Charters gets the ball. Does brilliantly to run inside, doesn't he? Beats a couple of men. And I've heard a few people say, he should have done better with his shot there. I think the ball just got a little bit away from him, and he did all he could to force the keeper into a save for a stretch shot. And it's a good save by the keeper, actually. Does bounce a little free, though, to Stretton. And watching back, I think he's maybe a yard offside. I think it's the right call, to be honest, having a look at it. When you look at the lines, it's hard to tell because the angle doesn't really show you, but I'm fairly certain he was offside for that one, which is a shame. But there you go. Up the other end, Hawks had a volley after Feeney misjudged a bounce the ball, but that was blocked by Huntington. Wasn't really much of a chance, if we're honest. Lovely little bit of play, though, by us then, not long after it, down the right. I think it was Guy initially. He found Dennis, and Dennis, Ellis. And Ellis played a little 1-2 with Dennis. They got him away down the right, and he whips in a hell of a ball, doesn't he? Like, incredible low ball, and Jack Armour is just inches away from getting on the end of it. But my favourite bit about this is, if you watch the Pitchside Blues video, Mike.
Yes.
If you listen to it, I'm surprised the club didn't put a warning about bad language on this, because all you hear is some guy saying, "It's too fucking easy," at the top of his voice, which was wonderful. I thought, yep, that sums up how annoyed they were getting at that point already.
But it's good. You touched on it before as well, because Simo's been on him to make these runs to the far post, and even if he's nowhere near the ball, you drag a defender sort of away. And
he did that a
Dennis, the gap for the first goal between the two defenders, Christian Dennis loves that kind of a gap in the area. Do you know what I mean? And if Armour can keep doing that, I think we'll see a lot. He won't get credited with a goal or an assist if he's doing that, but he'll be part of it.
He's having a fantastic season. I don't think we can doubt that at all. Considering he's missed like 1 minute of league action. Yeah, basically. Only Thomas Holy's played as much football as him for us, which is incredible. Really, he's an absolute credit to his fitness levels as well. He's been terrific in the league. Then came Tranmere's best chance. Dacros Cogley flicked a header from a corner from the right, heading towards not towards the top corner, but heading into the net. But what a brilliant one-handed save from Holy. Yeah,
as well. And I think if that was a normal-sized goalkeeper, it would be like an acrobatic, like fingertip save over the bar, and it'd look incredible. But when it's Holy, it doesn't look as spectacular.
No, but it is still brilliant because you have to react very quickly. Because it's a really good header, to be fair. Hawks then tried his luck from 30 yards, but his low effort was pretty. I love this one. He comfortably saved by Holy. Not only that, he sort of parried it, let it sit in front of him. And while he waited for the attacker to come, you see he fixes the straps on his gloves before he grabs the ball. Really, really comfortable.
It's like Daniel Craig adjusting his cufflinks in James Bond, isn't
it? Exactly that. And then the last chance for Tranmere of the half, a corner from the left this time. So Simeon mid the ball. I think, to be fair, Holy was a little bit lost on this corner, but Morgan Feedy was very, very aware, wasn't he? Got himself to the back post and headed it clear. Into the second half, Dennis's goal. One of those rare occasions, isn't it, Mike, where a referee actually punishes some pushing and pulling on a set piece or a penalty. Sorry, set piece or a corner free kick with a penalty.
Yeah, well, Simo talked about this post-match, and he says he was speaking to a fourth official about it, and he basically said, well, if one of your players has hold of a player's shirt as well, I'm not going to give it because they're both doing it. But if your player doesn't have a hold of the shirt, it's a foul, and we will give it. And Simo said after the game, like he's been telling his players, if they want to rough and tumble you, let them. Don't do anything back. And obviously, we got the result in the penalty.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think there's much doubt about it. Jack Stretton was basically shoved over, wasn't he? I think by
no arguments from the Tranmere players. Like
if you look at it, they're all a bit like, there's no real argument there. What I would say actually is the initial free kick it came from was very, very soft. I've watched it back and I can't really work out what their lad's been punished for. I think he's just got himself in front of Jack and been strong, really. So I don't know if you've got any different thoughts on that one, Mike.
No, it's one of them. It could have gone either way, really.
Yeah, I think if he just played on, I don't think there would have been a huge amount of complaints really from our fans. But there you go. But yeah, obviously, Edmondson missed the penalty against. Who's it again? Missed the penalty against now. I can't remember. Doncaster, wasn't it? Yes. He's obviously not available at the moment. Neither is Jordan Gibson, who's the first choice. So up steps Christian Dennis, who I'm guessing probably will be the first choice to take penalties now.
Certainly in his quest for the golden boot as well.
Oh, absolutely. And so calm and confident, wasn't he? He's just like, wait for Doohan to move and then just slotted it into the other corner. Brilliant penalty. Good celebrations at the away end as well. And then the rest of the game, I mean, did Thomas Holy have much to do for the rest of the game? It didn't look like it from what I've watched. There's one chance I saw was, I think, a low ball into the box from Dacres Cogley on the right, and Feeney got there just before the attacker. But bar that, the only other chance really was another great run by Jack Ellis down the right. Just, bundled his way past his man, didn't he? Gets to the byline, gets into the box and plays a low ball. And Charters was just inches away from getting on the end of it, wasn't it? For the goal that he would have deserved. It was a real shame he couldn't quite get on it. But that was it. And the only other highlight on the extended highlights that I watched back was, after that, was a cross to the far post that Thomas Holy just picked out of the air like he was picking an apple from a tree. It was like he was set, and he went down with the the usual lying on the floor holding it. This is far too easy, this, isn't it? So and that was it. As the result was, 2-0 and a lot of boos from the home fans at the end, but plenty of cheers in the away end. And yeah, it's just a fantastic result all around, really. We haven't got any 6-second reviews, I should say, this week. We haven't been able to get. I've been away, so literally only back today, really. So it's the first chance I've had to do anything. But yeah, Mike. I mean, let's just talk about a few talking points. I've only got a couple written down here, but we'll talk about some more. Back on form, that's the key thing, isn't it? I know it's only one game in, but I know we talked about the overreaction to the Stockport defeat, and I mentioned that, I saw somewhere else, someone said there was some mention or something of wheels falling off. I mean, that's just ridiculous. You've got to temper these sort of things. It's only 2 defeats it was, and it's against 2 good teams as well, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, one thing I noticed, obviously I wasn't at Stockport, but I read a lot of sort of people's opinions on it who were there, and I didn't see sort of one person saying, Simo got it wrong, Simo should have done this, Simo should have done that. And I think I speak for us all when I say I'm a fully paid up member of the cult of Paul Simpson. And when the players have a bad game, it's them who's getting the blame, not Simo. And I think that's quite a shock to some players. And we had it even early games under the likes of Beach and Millen, where if we didn't get a result, people would be saying, the manager's done this wrong, why didn't he do that, why didn't he play him? Why? And nobody will sort of say that about Simo. And when we have a bad result, it's on the players. And I think that is kind of a good position to be in, really.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I mean, there's a strong argument. I think that Simo did actually get it a little bit wrong against Stockport. I think it just didn't quite work the way he tried to.
He couldn't have picked another team, though, in reality.
That's the challenge, I suppose, isn't it? That's the risk with that one. But yeah, I mean, I think this result, for my money, puts talk of getting into a rut firmly behind us. Obviously, we're not going to get too overexcited. We're not going to say, yes, this is it, promotion's back on, whatever. But it shows that this team is strong and this team will come back from adversity, doesn't it?
Definitely. And it shows that sort of other good results this season, they're not like a flash in the pan. Like, these are sort of the norm. And it's the likes of Stockport that are the exception, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Stockport, as we said before, are in a false position. They will get themselves up the table.
Yeah.
I mean, look, they battered Sutton 3-0 at the weekend, didn't they? So,
And, the other games we've lost, Leyton Orient, top of the league, we had 10 men and we were the better team. And Stevenage, who, it was an away game, they're also doing very well. And, with all the injuries, If you'd have said before the season, we're going to lose at Stockport away and we're going to lose a home game against the team top of the league, but we'll have 10 men for it, and we'll lose another game against a team who, at the time, I think Stevenage were top of the league.
And that's the only games we'd have lost at this point.
Yeah, if you'd have said that before the season, that they're the 3 games that we'd have lost, I'd have been quite content with that. We're not going to win every week at the end of the day.
No. There needs to be a little bit of level of realism, doesn't there, in terms of that kind of thing. I'll leave the next talking point I've written down, Mike, till the end, because I think that's a really nice one to sort of end on and talk about. But let's talk about some of the player performances then. Obviously, Christian Dennis gets the headlines of his goals quite rightly. Good to see him getting back on the score sheet and finding that bit of form at the moment. Let's talk about Jack Stretton coming back in and how important he's suddenly become to the team in over the last month or so, really, isn't it? Really, it's quite incredible when you think that he was really sort of struggling a bit to find his feet at first, but now obviously he comes on Tuesday night and makes a difference against Stockport. He looks lively, starts this game, and can't be any doubt that his running caused as much problems as Christian Dennis's movement in the box, didn't it?
Definitely, and I've always said as well, for me, if you get fouled in the box and someone else scores a penalty, that's an assist in my book. So
you've always said that, haven't you? You've always insisted that to me.
And so, he got 2 assists, basically, which actually puts him up now. So he's our 3rd highest assister, which, with no stats to back this up whatsoever, I would say he probably has more assists and goals per minute on the pitch than anyone else, I reckon.
Possibly. It'd be worth having a look maybe at that one. But yeah, no, he's been fantastic. And the simple fact is, when Edmonton's fit, Edmonton's going to have to probably wait to get his chance in the team, because if Stretton's fit at the weekend, plays against Tranmere and plays well, and so does Dennis. Edmonton will be on the bench against Harrogate, and he'll have to wait his chance again.
Maybe. The one for me there is it could be Dennis sitting out at Harrogate, in that he's played a lot of football recently. I
don't think you'd rest him for a league game. I think the one you'd want to rest him for is the FA Cup game. Annoyingly, we haven't really got much choice but to play him, have we? Because people aren't fit, but there you go.
But I think reading between the lines of some of Simo's comments after the game is that he sort of wanted players to know that if you're out with suspension or an injury or whatever, your place in the team isn't going to be guaranteed when you come back in, if other players are going to come in and play well.
No, absolutely. Paul Huntington, so he came back into the starting lineup in place of Corey Whelan. We think Whelan's been fantastic this season, but completely justified his inclusion in the 11, didn't he?
Yeah, definitely. By all accounts, just won absolutely everything at the back, which is kind of the standard for him. He's one of them. He's almost a victim of his own good form, in that, he churns out these 8 out of 10 performances every week, and he might not win man of the match for it, because that's just what you expect from him.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. He's just been so solid, and the players around him lift their performance, basically, don't they? Because of him, because of how good he is. I mean, I'm looking at the WhoScored.com stats for the game, and he was rated 7.7. Basically, only second behind Feely for man of the match, who was 8.1. Sorry, third behind Thomas Holy, got 7.8, I should say. But there you go. I mean, every single one of our starting 11 got at least 7. Medic was the lowest at 7.2. Probably not as lively going forward in this game, maybe why you didn't get a higher score, but everyone got at least a 7. Whereas Tranmere Rovers, only Turnbull and Simi at the back got over 7. All the rest of them failed to get over it. Which, it tells you how dominant we were in this game. Even though the stats, when you look at it, they had 9 shots compared to our 7, both of us having 3 on target, but it shows most of the shots were long distance ones that were pretty easy to be dealt with. And possession wise, 62% to our 38. And yet, we still looked the better side quite comfortably, didn't we? So, yeah, fantastic to see. In terms of performances, obviously, the midfield. Let's talk about Taylor Charles again then, just because we obviously touched him already. It's tough for young lads, isn't it, sometimes, when you're coming through an academy and someone like Carlisle, in terms of going out and getting experience on loan, it's tough because you've only really got Workington and Kendall, and we don't even have Barrow these days. You've got Penn. If you're going to Penrith in your first year pro, you probably know your career is not going to be going anywhere. Don't you? That's the thing. So he got his chance at Gateshead, which is a rare chance, for a player at our level to go internationally north. Really took it. And he's been patient, hasn't he, to wait for his chance. And he's an example to younger players. Sometimes you do have to wait for the opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, James Phillips kept saying on the radio that it was an unsuccessful loan spell, and I'd strongly disagree with that. I think it's...
Really? I mean, he won the National League North title with them.
Yeah, exactly.
He played in a variety of different positions. He had plays. I mean, he's not going to play every single game for them, and I wouldn't expect him to. I'd like him to have.
He's scored a fair few goals as well.
Yeah, he's got a few key goals from, doesn't he? And they all seem to really like him there. So
yeah,
a bit strange on that one, but
but I think it did him the world of good. I really do. I mean, he's a player that I already rated. Personally, I don't fancy him as sort of a left wing back. I think
I think he
is
can
better
do a
in
job
midfield.
there, but I think that's only like temporarily when you really need to, maybe during a game. But midfield, he looks better. And you know what? He started 4 league games for us now. He's played bloody well in all 4 of them, from what I remember. I can't remember what the 4th ones, but I remember the one against Newport, which was under Skelton, wasn't it, when he was caretaker. Had a decent game that night. Against Walsall on his debut, he was fantastic.
Man of the match, probably.
Another great game against Tranmere. So when he starts games, he's generally solid. It's difficult for him because sometimes he's only coming on for 2 or 3 minutes at the end of the game. You can't really make an impression. But what it's done, it's made Simpson look up now and go, okay, I can rely on you to come in and maybe replace Jordan Gibson in games, which might benefit Gibson a bit because he might get a little bit more of a rest now. Because Simon might look and think, great, I can give Gibbo a rest here. Or even what it might do, it might even push Gibbo on to be an even better player because he might look like this lad potentially can take my place in the team if needs be.
Exactly, and I think one of the things with him that's a little bit different to Gibson is his physical strengths. Obviously, touched on it before. Obviously, he won a lot of his aerial battles, but he's quite, for someone I think he's only 20, isn't he? He's a big, strong lad, which, when Gibson's tired out a team for 70, 80 minutes, maybe you need that coming on off the bench.
Yeah, I think it gives you a little bit more composure on the ball than Jaden Harris was. I think Jaden Harris, if you wanted someone to go and disrupt things and win the ball a bit, he'll be perfect for that situation. But if you want to keep the ball a bit more and be a bit more calm, I think Charles will be the perfect man. So, brilliant from him as well. Any other individual? Should we talk about Jack Ellis? Come on, let's talk about Jack Ellis as well then. Fantastic performance, wasn't it?
Yeah, he just comes in and does a job, and he didn't even know till the morning of the game that he was playing. But he just, just gets on with it, and he's solid and dependable. You know exactly what you're going to get from him.
Yeah, 100%. He's what really impresses me is he grows into games. He's not somebody who gets worse, and he seems to get better and better as the game goes on. There's a couple of games recently where, as you've touched before, Mike, you thought that teams have sort of targeted him almost. Yeah. In terms of, looking to attack down his wing.
Which you can't blame him for.
That's just sensible, isn't it? That's what most teams would do. But he always copes with it. And then he gets more and more comfortable and confident on the ball going forward. And you only have to look at the 2 decent chances he created. He should have an assist, really, in this game. Some of the balls he was putting in were fantastic, and gets up and down. I still can't work out what his final position is going to be because he looked really good at centre back as well, actually, for the few couple of games he played there. I think at the moment, with his age, I think that right wing back role probably is better. One question we've got is Joel Senior is going to be back in the next 3 weeks or so, isn't he, in terms of fitness? I wonder if we might even look to loan him out somewhere till January just to get his fitness up because I don't. Would you pick a player coming back from an ACL injury ahead of Ellis at the moment in that position? No. Finn Back's first choice. And I still think Finn Back should go back in next weekend if he's fit. But, yeah.
I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, if sort of Senior can come back and he's fit and he's ready to come in, I wouldn't object to... If we could loan Ellis out to like a National League side where he's going to play every week, I think that'd do him a world of good as well.
Yeah. It's good. It's going to be very interesting to see what goes on. But, I mean... I think because Joel Senior looked quite impressive in the, he only played 4 or 5 games in the last season, but he looked lively going forward, especially really good in the ball. We've got an embarrassment of riches down that side, haven't we? Almost, it's ridiculous, isn't it? The amount of
we've got the opposite on the left.
Yeah, we're struggling a little bit. And poor Duncan Iden, he's going to have to be patient. He might get his. I don't know if Bristol City will let him play in the FA Cup of the weekend. That's a question to ask, I suppose, and maybe they won't. But we are struggling a little bit down that side, aren't we, at the moment? And it should be noted, John Mellish actually picked up his 5th booking of the season in this one. A really silly one as well. And he has got a few silly ones this season. And, we're big fans of John. But, we could do without him getting a 1-game ban. Although I suppose if he's going to get banned in any game, I'd rather it was an FA Cup game than a league game, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's one positive, I suppose. But, yeah, so he's going to miss the game against Tranmere, but he'll be back for the Harrogate League game. Let's just talk about them. 4 Cumbrians in the starting 11 for the first time since, was it April 2015 against Plymouth Argyle? 2-0 win?
Not just Cumbrians as well. I know Huntington and Moxon are both Carlisle lads.
Yeah.
Is Ellis a Carlisle lad?
Ellis is from Kendal.
Okay.
One of our good friend Cameron's fellow Kendal types. And yeah, obviously Taylor Charters is from Maryport, isn't he?
Yeah,
We've got a good record of players from Maryport, haven't we, when you think about it? Glenn Murray, Kyle Dempsey, and Taylor Charters now, yeah. Get some decent players from out west. So it was, I don't know if it was Huntington staged it or it was like just coincidence that the 4 of them together in that photo, but the 4 of them walking towards the away to get the applause at the end was just a lovely, lovely photo, wasn't it, really? Nice to see that.
And incidentally, the last game that we had 4 Cumbrians in the starting 11, we won 2-0.
We did indeed, yeah, with goals from Billy Painter and Gary Dicker.
So maybe that's a secret. Maybe it doesn't matter who they are. Just 4 random Cumbrians. Just stick them in the starting 11 and we'll win 2-0 every week.
Took him in, obviously. And another Cumbrian on the bench with Ryan Carr, we should say as well, actually, which is nice to see. I think Ryan Carr's a Cumbrian, or maybe he's a Geordie, I'm not sure. Should have checked that before I said that. But there you go. Because I know Nick Ballado is a Geordie, isn't he? So I didn't say he was, but we'll have to see. Anything else to pick out from this game, Mike?
No, not really. I think we've covered everything pretty extensively.
We'll briefly talk about Dinell Simi, obviously, playing up against us. We said this in the preview, me and Dan. Are we fussed that we didn't get him in the end? Not really, when you've got someone like Paul Huntington in there.
Yeah, exactly. Of the 2, you'd much rather have Huntington. I think some of our fans are miffed that we didn't get Simu as well.
But would you pick him ahead of Feeney? No. Would you pick him ahead of Mellish? No. Definitely not ahead of Huntington. So he'd be back up at best. And I think actually someone like Whelan is far better options to back up because he's such a good professional and he would, he'll wait his time and he'll take his chance when it comes. I think I don't think he would enjoy it as much being on the bench for long periods. So it worked out for both clubs, I guess. So he's done pretty well at Tranmere. So there you go. Right, should we do a quick roundup of the League 2 ones then, Mike, before we get into the second half of the show? Looking down at the results, Northampton having a little bit of a wobble at the moment, are they? Just spotted that. I mean, they were obviously flying not too long ago, and now, well, it's just not quite working out for them. They drew 1-1 at home with Newport. Obviously, Newport have just appointed Graham Coughlin, I think, as their new manager.
Yeah, I think Northampton were my favourites for the league as well in pre-season. So be interesting to see if they sort of shake off this wobble. I mean,
when you look at the table, Northampton on 32, and now Stevenage got a 4-point gap to 36, and then it's another 3 points up to Leyton Orient. So if Leyton Orient could win their game in hand as well, they would go 12 points clear of fourth place Swindon. Now, that can change a bit if Barrow win their game in hand because they'll be then 11 points, but 11 points clear at this stage. Teams have blown it before, but it's hard to say. I mean, obviously talking about Orient, did you see the goal that Orient scored in their 1-0 win?
No.
Oh my word, wait till you see it. It's very almost Mo Salah-esque. That goal he scored against City, I think, last season or someone. I can't remember who it was, the one where he sort of jinked and moved about a bit. Paul Smith basically gets into the area. It looks like he's fouled and he goes down onto his haunches. Referee gives nothing and he just jumps up to his feet, beats 2 men and then just smashes it in the bottom corner. Brilliant finish. Really, really good football. But it's just quite impressive really how well they're doing at the moment. Good old Orient. That was against Salford, I think it was. I'm just trying to get the results up. I've lost it.
Salford, yeah.
Yeah, 1-0 win against Salford. It's a fantastic result for them. We won't talk about AFC Wimbledon against Harrogate because we'll be talking about that in the second half. Barrow seem to have rediscovered their mojo a bit, or is it just a case of Crewe probably not being a very good side this season?
I don't know. Maybe a little bit of both, but they are currently ahead of us in the league, which I'm not a big fan of, but we move.
Yeah, we do. Mansfield Town, what is it about their record at the moment defensively? they're all over the place, aren't they? They lost 5-2 at home to Swindon Town. I know Swindon are up there with them, but my word, it's a strange set of results for them at the moment, isn't it?
They had a man sent off, but I think they were already they'd already conceded 3 at that point. So
yeah, it's not very from them, is it? Well, let's go down to the bottom of the table. Colchester United, they're bottom now, but they did pick up a decent point, to be fair. A 1-1 draw against Stevenage, you're right up at the top. So I certainly wouldn't sniff at that, would you, as a Colchester fan? I don't think in that current situation. It is so tight at the bottom, though, isn't it? I'm just looking at the table here. From Crawley Town in 19th down to Colchester in 24th, 3 points.
Yeah.
Hartlepool played one game more than everyone else, so they're in a little bit more trouble.
And the goal difference as well. Crawley in 19th have -10. Gillingham in 20th have -11. Harrogate in 21st have -10. Rochdale in 22nd have -11. So it's really, really tight.
Really, really tight, isn't it? Yeah, it's not great news for those teams down the bottom. I have a feeling those 6 teams you see there, plus maybe Sutton might get dragged into it, are the teams that are going to be down there at the end of the season. I can't see any of them shooting up the table anytime soon.
And to be honest, I think the 2 that go down, I don't think that they'll be bouncing back anytime soon either.
It's a weird one because I don't think there's anyone who's particularly appalling this season, who's dreadful, like a Scunthorpe level of dreadful. I just think the average of the poorer teams in the division is much wider this season, whereas up at the top, you've got 3 exceptional teams at the moment, but the playoff pack is really tightly packed as well, isn't it? Obviously, from Doncaster in 10th up to Barrow in 5th, 3 points again separating them, and again the goal difference is fairly tight. Doncaster's a little bit away from everyone else, but everyone else is quite tightly packed in there.
Well, we're only in the playoffs on goal difference ourselves, and Salford and Mansfield below us in 8th and 9th have the same amount of points, just worse goal difference.
Yeah, there you go. Before we sign off on this half of the show, should we talk about a certain manager's post-match comments at the weekend?
Go on.
So obviously, Hartlepool United, managed by our good old friend Mr. Keith Curl, picked up a decent, it has to be said, 2-1 win against Grimsby Town at home. And after the match, their media guy, I think, did an interview with Keith Curl and said to him, how are you feeling after that one? And he said, he did his usual thing. He's clearly pre-planned that he's going to say this because he thinks it's funny. So he says, there's 3 things I asked for today. 1 was for Hartlepool to get a win, which they've got. 2, Manchester City to get a win, which they got. And 3, his missus to be in a sexy mood when he gets home. He said, I've got the first 2. I'm going to be grafting as much as I can all the way home to make sure I get the hat trick at the end of the day. And the guy was just floored. He was like, I don't even know what to ask after that. And he certainly likes to get. I'll give him credit. He's good at getting his own PR, isn't he, Curl? I think he's not the daftest man in the room, is he? I suppose, but yeah. So whether he got lucky or not, we don't know, and I don't really want to know, if I'm frankly honest. But there you go. So that's the League 2 roundup, then, Mike, isn't it? So we'll take a little break, and then we'll be back to do the preview of the next 2 fixtures.
Hi, it's Morgan Feeney, and you're listening to the Brunton Bugle.
Morgan, was it Paolo Malfini is what you called him, Mike?
Yeah, that's what I call him.
Paolo Malfini, there is the main man, the Bootle's finest. Right, let's get on to the preview section then, Mike. And we're looking ahead to 2 fixtures this week, obviously. We're looking ahead to the FA Cup game against Tranmere and the league game against Harrogate Town. We haven't got a behind enemy line section, unfortunately, but with being away and stuff like that at the moment, it's been really difficult to actually get something pinned down in terms of that sort of stuff. I'm going to sort something out for the Walsall game. It's a game I'm actually not going to, but I'm going to sort out a proper chat with someone for the Walsall fixture next week, so that'll be all sorted for them. So yeah, let's look ahead to the Tranmere FA Cup game, Mike. Referee for this one, Declan Bourne. It's his 3rd season as an EFL referee. He's taken charge of just 7 games so far this season, handing out 33 yellows and 3 red cards. I mean, that's fairly card happy, that, isn't it, for 7 games?
Yeah.
That's like nearly a red every other game and nearly 5 yellows a game.
Yeah, well, it's not... We've had so many referees this season, and you've said, this is his 1st season as an EFL referee.
And they're handing out a lot of cards, aren't they? Whereas
the
older ones, like Carl Boyson, his record wasn't as high in terms of cards, and he pretty much kept his cards in his pocket for the game against Tranmere, didn't he? I mean, it was two yellows for us, and that was it. So yeah, you do get that occasionally. Last season, he handed out 97 yellows and 2 red cards in his 24 games. Again, very card happy in terms of the yellows, at least. The last United game he took charge of was the 2-0 win at Stevenage in December last year. Kelvin Miller was the only player booked for the Blues that evening. We were awarded a penalty, though, on that game for a trip on Jordan Gibson. I think he converted the penalty as well in that match. Head-to-head record, obviously, it's changed slightly from last week. We're getting closer, Mike. We're nearly level. But the 93rd meeting between the two sides, Carlisle have won 36, 18 have been a draw, and Rovers have won 38. Yeah, let's just talk generally about the FA Cup, Mike, because the thing is, we can talk about their squad. We talked about that last week, really. It's all been covered, isn't it? What does the FA Cup mean to you? It's one of these. It's such an old institution now. What, nearly 150 years? Or is it? I think it might even be 150 years old now. Do you still get excited for the FA Cup first round draw?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is. There's just something magical about it, isn't it? And I think even if you're sort of hoping, I mean, even if Carlisle aren't involved, I don't watch a ton of football other than Carlisle, but if there's a really proper non-league side on BBC on like a Friday night, you've always got to give it a watch, haven't you? Yeah. Just everyone's always hoping for the giant killings, aren't they?
Giant killing or indiscriminate violence. That's the two things you're looking for, isn't it, from an FA Cup tie? You know, about 4 or 5 players getting sent off for bringing down some tricky League Two winger of some sort, isn't it? That's what you want, isn't it? But yeah, no, you're right. It's one of those things. It is something that you do get quite excited about, isn't it? You're like, oh, you know, what I'm looking forward to. What do you look for in an FA Cup first round draw? What's the first thing you think about?
Ideally, you want a proper non-league team, and you sort of, you know, because we've had a few in recent years, and they've sort of enjoyed their little day, and we've stuffed them and gone to the next round.
We don't get beat very often by non-league teams in the FA Cup, do we? Our record is actually quite decent in terms of the results we get. Whereas, like, when we face league time teams, I'm always like, with the draw, I always think to myself, I want one of two things. Either one, a home tie against someone that's easy to beat, so we can get ourselves into the second round and get ourselves closer to the third round. Or two, a trip to a non-league team that we've never played before, so it's a new ground to tick off somewhere weird and wonderful. Preferably a really long distance one for the ridiculousness of the trip. I mean, we were saying, weren't we, the fact that St Ives were in the first round of the FA Cup, we were getting excited thinking, oh, is that St Ives in Cornwall? It's not, it's St Ives in Cambridgeshire, which is quite disappointing. But still would have been quite an interesting one to do. So it's one of those ones you look for, maybe either a non-league team miles away or one that's not too far away so you could take a big following. Or, like I said, an easy route into the second round. Sorry, I suppose that's the way you look at it, isn't it? Because that's what you want, isn't it? It is the exciting. Do you think it still has its magic?
I think it's fading in some respects, which I don't really like to admit. And I think, I mean, there's talk, isn't there, that they maybe want to change it to midweek, which I think would kill some of the magic for me.
I think it's already. I think it's the fifth round is in the midweek at the moment. It's been for the last few seasons because of the ridiculously tight calendar. And this year, obviously, in terms of the fact that obviously the World Cup's been in there means there's more Premier League midweeks, which means there's no. I think that to make sure they don't lose another weekend, they basically said the FA Cup will have to be one of the midweeks as well, which is frustrating, but is what it is. And obviously that means there's no replays for the fifth round. They've not had replays for the sixth round for a while. To be honest, I've always been of the thought, once you get to the fifth round, you don't, and the sixth rounds, you probably don't need replays, if I'm honest. And it's maybe I'm not traditionalist enough for people with that, but I think, I mean, once you get to the sixth round, you've only got 8 teams left anyway. So you generally got the bigger teams. If you've got that far, you've got some great results, and actually getting a replay against someone, does it matter that much? I don't think it does.
But I've always enjoyed a replay and sort of knowing who you're going to be playing in the following round.
Yeah, but I suppose at that point you should be excited anyway because you're going into a semi-final if you're in the sixth round. That's the thing with that. With the third and fourth rounds, I still think FA Cup replay should still happen. I think it should continue. I think it should be maybe put into like set into stone. They stay. We'll give up the sixth and the fifth rounds to protect the other rounds and say they have to stay for the earlier rounds. They have to. that has to be the agreement because that's the only fair way in the smaller teams.
Yeah, I mean, you get the likes of Jurgen Klopp. It was a couple of years ago. They had Shrewsbury as a replay, and he was complaining about fixture congestion. But there is a very simple and effective way to avoid FA Cup replays, and that's by beating the team in the original game.
Beat it, and secondly, the reason you're playing so many games is because you're good, because you're playing in all the games in Europe. Enjoy it. Stop complaining about it.
Yeah.
It does my head in sometimes to do it. And I don't think Jurgen Klopp's particular. I know some people don't like him. I think he's a bit of a breath of fresh air. For English football at times. But at the same time, he does say stuff that's a lot of nonsense. But then again, it's like any manager, I suppose, isn't it? But there you go. So yeah, I'm with you. I think I'd like to keep them mostly the replays, but I think there's probably a bit of give and take there. I think getting rid of them in the 6th round, I'm not as fussed on. I don't think it made.
I mean, we're rarely in the 6th round anyway, so it doesn't really.
We've been there once, Mike. So yeah. But it's the 3rd and 4th rounds where you really got a chance because it helps as well if sometimes you get non-league teams play against each other in the 3rd round. You think, for God's sake, that's not fair on them. So then when they get to the 4th round, you want to give them that chance where they could get that replay if they really wanted against a big team. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm thinking now. I mean, we had a cracking replay away at Yeovil to play. Where we knew that the winner plays Everton basically. And that was, I mean, I wasn't there that night, but it just sounded like an absolutely brilliant, proper FA Cup clash where both teams were going for it because both teams wanted that lucrative 3rd round draw.
I didn't go to that one either. And I can remember where I was for it. I was in the cinema, the Fact Cinema in Liverpool. I went to see The Revenant that night because I really wanted to stay at home and follow the game. And Megan was like, I've got your cinema tickets, so you go into the cinema. So I'm like, okay. So every now and then my phone was vibrating. So I have a little peek just to see what the score was. And very enjoyable that was. I think
the Jabbo clothesline.
Francois Zoko missing a penalty as well to potentially win it for Yeovil. Had everything that game, didn't it? It must have been a brilliant one for the fans who travelled down. Before in fact, let's talk about what would your dream 1st round FA Cup tie be then? Let's pick like two, 3 of your like dream fixtures. What would they be? Based on the current league structure, so who's in League One at the moment?
So sort of like you, to be honest. I wouldn't mind St Ives away or something like that.
I think Truro City would be the obvious one now, wouldn't it? I think because they're in the league. So that's I think as low as you can go.
And at the same time, purely for selfish reasons, I wouldn't mind a sort of Merseyside-based team away. It's more away than home that I want, to be honest. But yeah, ideally, a nice sort of trip to somewhere that you haven't been before.
Yeah, I think for you, that obviously puts Southport would be the obvious one, because I think as good as Marine would be, we wouldn't get a big allocation for Marine, would we? It's not a big ground, is it, at all? So basically, Southport or Berska, basically, the two ones close to you, aren't they, I guess?
We got, who was it we played at? Goodison.
Knowsley.
Knowsley, that's the one, yeah.
Obviously don't exist anymore, but you wouldn't be able to switch ties anymore. I don't think you're not allowed to do that. You have to play the game against them where they are. I'm kind of with you. I think Prescott Cables would be a lovely one for me. That's literally a short train journey for me up the road. Like a Warrington. I think somewhere interesting, like an old Trinum FC would be something we've got, because that you're likely to get on telly there possibly as well, aren't you? Really, in terms of because of the their history in terms of the FA Cup. Although the risk is you're going to get beat by them, isn't it? I suppose. I mean, other than that, I'm sort of looking. I'm trying to look at a map here to see if there's any other places. I mean, like Gateshead away or something, or maybe like even like a South Shields away. Again, risks of getting beat, but fairly short journeys. Bishop Auckland or somewhere like that, or even like a Spennymoor over that way as well. I think so. Yeah, there's lots of potential options. York would be a lovely one. York, I haven't been a good day out in York for a long time. But... Yeah, well, I haven't been to their new ground yet, so... No, that's true. That's very true indeed. But yes, I think we're both sort of in agreement. Like, in fact, no, the dream one is... I keep getting this wrong. I keep forgetting. Dan always gets this right, this one. The dream FA Cup tie is Dover away. Yeah. That is the dream and always will be the dream. Fly to France and travel back over the thing to go to the game. That's what it is, isn't it? But there you go. Although these days you'd get a few funny looks, wouldn't you, if you said landed in France at the airport? So what are you coming over here for? Oh, just to get the ferry back over to watch Carlisle play at Dover. Come in here, sir. Let's have a word. But that's probably what it would be. Before we move on, let's just a quick look back at some classic FA Cup ties against Tranmere Rovers that we've played. Now, the first time we played in the FA Cup, you've got to go all the way back to 1935. We got beat 3-0. So nothing really to say about that one. We were knocked out. A couple of years later, again, we played them in one of the early rounds. We got beat 2-1 at Tranmere. So early days, we haven't got a great result against them in the FA Cup. In fact, I think, if I'm right here, we've only ever beaten them once in the FA Cup. And that came in January 1997. The season we obviously got promoted and we won at Wembley as well in the Auto Windscreen Shield. We beat them 1-0 at Brunton Park in an FA Cup third round tie. That was actually rearranged. I think it was supposed to be on a Saturday, but because of the bad weather, it got rearranged to a midweek possibly. And yet, they were a championship side at the time. People kind of forget that sometimes. That they were quite a big team.
They're a solid championship side.
Yeah, in the 90s as well. They used to their cup record was brilliant around that time as well.
They reached, was it the League Cup final around that time?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it was that season because Clint Hill was sent off in the final for them, wasn't he? I think. Then. So yeah, we beat them 1-0 at Brunton Park. I think it was an own Archdeacon penalty to win the game. John Aldridge was sent off for abusing the linesman over a decision. And what we got was our reward was a home tie against Sheffield Wednesday in the FA Cup, which we lost 2-0. It was on match. I remember because that was on Match of the Day, and I remember how exciting that was to see Carl United on Match of the Day I think it was a 12 round about then. So always an exciting moment. We did play them again 4 years later in the FA Cup. We got beat 6-1 at Tranmere. So basically, when we play them at home, we beat them. When we play them at Tranmere, we lose. So I'm not saying it's a premonition for this weekend, but it is. So yeah, if you want to put your money on, put it on us to win this weekend because we beat them at home in the FA Cup, basically. So our record's pretty good against them. The 6-1 defeat, Richie Foran got our goal in that one. I always remember that because Jason Kumar scored a hat-trick and 2 of them he curled into the top corner from 20-25 yards. He was outrageously good.
He didn't score many tap-ins, did he?
No. He's got a penalty in that game as well. I have a feeling Jason Price scored in that game as well for Tranmere. He was definitely playing for them roundabout then, from memory. But Richie Foran got our goal, and Dave Rogers tried to get in the home end to fight someone at one point because they were abusing his family, I think. So, I think that's where Dave Rogers got his nickname of being a football hooligan that chance. So there you go. Right, that's the Tranmere game covered then, Mike. Let's look ahead to Harrogate. It's a game that we're both going to, both looking forward to. Unfortunately, we're going to arrive too late to go to Betty's Tea Rooms, aren't we? It's going to be shut probably by the time we get there, so we'll find the nearest spoons, I'm sure, and have a pint there. The pub that's been recommended, though, is the Empress, which is on 10 Church Square, Harrogate. HG1 4SP is the postcode if you want to go to that. Referee for this one, Thomas Kirk. It's his first season as an EFL referee. He's taken charge of 16 games so far this season, handing out 70 yellow cards, but no red cards. So again, another card-happy one that doesn't hand out reds, interestingly. Last season, he handed out 16 yellow cards and no red cards in 7 games at National League level. So he was quite calm last season with his cards instead. So strange that he's gone up. He actually has refereed United before, though. He refereed the opening game of the season, the 1-0 win over Crawley Town. So we have got experience of having him as a referee. Because normally,
I can't remember him being terrible in that game. So
no, certainly not. It should be said when games are called off for very reason. This was obviously called off due to the death of the Queen. Quite often, the referee from the original game is carried over to the rearranged game. That's not the case in this one. I think it was supposed to be Sonny Gill was supposed to be referee this one, but he isn't referee, so it's Thomas Kirk. We don't do this now, do we? It's going to be the 6th meeting between the two sides. What have I got? Yeah. Sorry, 6th meeting between the two sides. No wins to Carlisle, 1 draw and 4 defeats. They are the very definition of a bogey side at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, from what I've because we played them on iFollow during that season, and it looks like not a nice place to go and play football. The pitch doesn't look massive.
It's quite tight, isn't it? Because obviously it was a 4G pitch before they got into the league. So it's quite a different experience, I suppose. So it's when you look at this season, we discussed this obviously when we originally previewed it, but they've got a bigger squad than last season, but it's not really done them much good, has it? Really?
No. I mean, I think we all had them down as strugglers. I don't think any of us are surprised that where they are in the league. I mean, one signing that they made that I was impressed with was Joe Mattock, because he played most of his season at championship level. I think he was an England under-21 international as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the rest of them, they haven't really lost anyone.
No, there's not been a huge amount of players gone out. The ones who have gone out have gone to, well, other than Danilo Orsi, have gone to non-league teams, haven't they? Or they've been released, and some of them retired, some of them sort of dropped down the league. So not a massive amount of loss in terms of that. Brought a lot in. They're relying heavily on players on loan from Huddersfield again, which you kind of expect because Huddersfield down the road, but at the same time, it can be a risk when that starts to happen. You come a bit too comfortable with taking whoever. We found that with Man United, didn't we, a few years back? Where, we had a couple of really good ones, but then we were loaning everyone from them.
And as well,
went great.
They're probably a bit scared to damage that relationship with them, and not play some players who maybe don't deserve to be playing.
Yeah, definitely. They actually have got 6 players on loan, I think. So I think at least one misses out on each match day. One of them might be a long-term injury. I don't know. I'm not 100% of that one. But their form's terrible. They're 23rd in the last 6 games form table. The record's loss, won, drawn, loss, basically. But if you go back to the last 12 games, they've only won one of them. In fact, out of the last possible 36 points, they've only picked up 5. They're in a real rotten run, aren't they? They started the season okay in those first 4 or 5 games, sorry. But since then, they've really struggled, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. And like I said before, it's not really much of a surprise. And hopefully we end them being our bogey team. This is the thing.
He's got to end sometime in that bogey run. We look a much more composed and confident side than we did last season when we went there and Simmer was not happy with the performance, was he, from that game?
No.
We look like a side more likely to get a result now, don't we? I think we look a bit more like we've got a bit more belief when we go into games. Even when we have a bit of a setback, we look like we can get into it. The exception being the Stockport game, but that's just for me, that's probably just a one-off, isn't it, really? But yeah, I mean, last time out, as we mentioned before, they lost 3-2 to Wimbledon. They were 2-1 up in this game with 6 minutes to go. And they conceded 2 goals in the last 6 minutes, including an 88th minute winner for Wimbledon. That'll knock the stuffing out of you, surely, you'd think?
Yeah, certainly. And I said a while ago, it was back when we were getting all of these draws, I said later in the season we could play a team, and if we go sort of 1-0 up relatively early, heads will drop and they'll start bickering with each other.
Yeah.
And I think that Harrogate could well be that kind of side, to be honest.
I mean, I'm looking in terms of the FA Cup, they've got an early kick-off on Saturday. I'm not sure if it's live on telly or anything, but they're away at Bradford. I'd fancy Bradford to batter them. I really would. Even if Bradford put a slightly weakened team out, that could really dent their confidence. I mean, in fact, I'm looking at the fixtures coming up. They've got a horror month. After they play us, they play at home against Leyton Orient, and then the weekend after, they're home against Mansfield Town. They could be really, really deep in trouble. It's a weird month for November, actually, isn't it? Because actually, take out that game, the rearranged game that we've got. We've actually only got 2 other league fixtures because of the way the FA Cup's balanced this year in terms of where the rounds are played. So, there's a little bit of a break for the players actually coming up to a busy December. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
They've got a weird little dynamic, haven't they, with the manager and the owner? The manager being the son-in-law, isn't it? I think.
I don't think it's just his dad, isn't it? I might be wrong on that. Maybe you might be right.
It's either son or son-in-law, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously, don't want to have an awkward Christmas dinner if they sack him.
If things go badly, yeah, definitely not. So let's talk about United then briefly, Mike, to sum up the previous section. Gibson will obviously return from suspension for the FA Cup game against Tranmere. John Mellish does miss out with his 1-game ban, but both Mellish and Edmondson will return from their bans against Harrogate. I mean, that'll be a real boost. I mean, to get all those lads back, won't it? I think in terms of
definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, well, for Tranmere, I think they will have studied the game against us, and they'll sort of be trying to outthink us and how we played. So I don't think we can go into that playing exactly the same way as we did last week. It wouldn't surprise me too much if we actually went 4 at the back for it, because I think the 3 at the back works best with Mellish, and if he's not in there, maybe not.
I'm not sure he'll make such a major change. I think he'll be one to stick with the rest of the team to the way they play. So I wonder.
And just slot Idahan in there.
Well, it depends whether he's allowed to play because they're on a half-season loan, and obviously Bristol City come into the first round in January, so he could return, and they might think, well, just use him in this game. They may well not think that. They may well say, you know what, we want to get him game experience, so let's play him in this game. So we'll find out, obviously, towards the end of the week, I'm sure, on that one. But with the other loanies, I'm sure they'll be allowed to play. I'm not sure how close Barkley is to returning either. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he picks this. I mean, would you bring Gibson straight back in? I personally would. And that's not a slight on Charters. I just think Gibson still is our best attacking threat in terms of that midfield. I think he needs to be in there. But what it does, it sort of gives a little nudge, doesn't it, to Gibson to say, all right, Hilton and Devitt might be out, but they still can step him now as well. And I suppose if Guy has got an injury, potentially Charters can come in for him, can't he?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, we'll see what happens with Guy, really. I think that is quite a key part of it. But for me, by all accounts, from what Charters was doing to them in the air, I wouldn't mind starting Charters. And it would say to Gibson, stop picking up stupid yellow cards. And, you can't just expect to walk back in the team after a one game out. And Charters was cramping really badly, so I think maybe start Charters against Tranmere and then start Gibson against Harrogate, because Charters is probably behind the rest of the squad in terms of his fitness.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously coming into that Harrogate game, you potentially got Edmondson back on the bench as well, which means obviously Bilardo can step out. Obviously Carr will probably step out with Gibson returning as well. So, in fact, actually I should say at the weekend you are allowed 9 substitutes in the FA Cup. So there's a chance, that potentially a lot of those lads could be there. I should say, as we're recording now, I'm just looking at the youth team squad, they're getting beat 3-0 in the FA Youth Cup. After our wishes of good luck, didn't go quite well, did they really? But there you go. So whether those lads will be allowed back in the first team, I don't know at the weekend. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what he does, and interesting to see what Tranmere do in response, actually, possibly, because, for them, they'll probably want to change things up a little bit, and it's, coming all the way up to us, I'm sure they're not looking forward to that either, after being beat at the weekend by us. Right, shall we do predictions now?
Yeah.
So go on. What are you going for? First of all, let's do them separate, because Dan sent me them separately. So let's have your Tranmere prediction first. So
for Tranmere, I'm going to go for a 1-0 win, and I'll go for Paul Huntington to score.
Okay, nice tight one. You're going for a 1-0 win. I'm going to go. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win, with goals from Dennis to get another, and why not Taylor Charters? I think he'll come on as a sub and he'll get a goal. So Taylor Charters to get the winner in a 2-1 win. Right, let's see what Dan had to predict for that one.
This week's prediction comes live from Wall Street in New York City. Just got to get that in there. I'm going to go for a repeat of Saturday, a 2-0 win, and Christian Dennis to get both.
He's like rubbing it in, doesn't he? Just because you're on holiday, pal. You have to show off. There you go. So there's Dan live from NYC, giving us his prediction for that one. Harrogate, what are you going for?
I am going for 4-0. Go big or go home. Yeah. And I'll say Jack Armour is due a goal. He's going to get one. I think Jordan Gibson will get one. Christian Dennis will get one. And I'll go for Owen Moxon to get one.
Okay, right. You say go big or go home. 5-0. There you go. I'm going to go one better. Christian Dennis hat-trick. Ryan Edmondson with another, because he's from round that way, isn't he? So I think he'll enjoy getting a goal against them. And who else got the other? Jordan Gibson will get the other goal. So there you go. Right, let's hear what Dan had to say for Harrogate.
I'm going to go for another 2-0 win, with Christian Dennis and Owen Moxon getting the goals.
There you go. So there's Dan's predictions for that. I should say, in terms of prediction league, I think I'm on 9 now and Dan's on 11. And I
think so. Up? And I'm no longer on 4.
Yeah, you've actually got one. Well done.
I'm on 5.
Taking you a bit of time to get yourself up there, but there you go.
Yeah.
Right, Dan did actually send us a question for this one, so I'm going to do this quickly because I completely forgot to do it at the start of the second half. So here's Dan's, I think it's an FA Cup related question. I did ask him for one, so let's see what he had to say.
The last time Carlisle played Tranmere in the FA Cup was in 2001. Unfortunately, we got 6 past us that day and we were atrocious. However, Tranmere had 2 Carlisle players playing for them that day. Who were they?
Well, I've spoiled one of them already, haven't I? I've named him. Right, okay, so those listening, pretend you didn't hear what I said earlier. We know what one of them is, don't we? So Jason Price is one of them, I'm pretty sure.
Mm.
Who's the other? Was Clinton Hill still there then? I feel like he'd left by then.
Yeah, this is early 2000s.
Oh no, maybe. You know what?
Maybe he was, yeah.
Because actually, I think they got to the League Cup final in 2000, didn't they?
Mm.
So he got sent off for that one. So he probably was just about still there. So are we going for that then? Are we going for Jason Price and Clinton Hill?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So let's see what Dan had to say for this one.
And the answers are Clint Hill and Jason Price. Price actually scored in the game, funnily enough.
Oh, there you go. We
go.
were right all along.
I had no idea Price scored in that game.
I certainly didn't mention that one earlier, did I? I'm sorry, everyone. I spoiled that one. I should have done the question earlier, but there you go. We'll get back on form with a better question next week, I'm sure. Right, let's wrap it up then. Let's do the X-Files section, Mike. A bit quieter this week, isn't it? Not a huge amount in there, but there's one absolute blockbuster in there, isn't there? You've been like, let me just get myself primed over the joke button because I know exactly what you're going to do here. Let's start near the top though first. Gary Medine and Jerry Yates, they both scored in Blackpool's 2-1 win. Coventry City both in fine form, aren't they?
Mm.
Really doing well.
I'm not sure Yates will be there at the end of January, to be honest.
No, I have a feeling my Premier League club's going to come in, but they're going to get good money for him, fair play. James Tavernier, he scored in he scored in Rangers' 4-1 home win over Aberdeen. Paddy Madden, he just can't stop scoring at the moment, is he? He's really found his feet again with Stockport. He was in the score sheet as helping Stockport to a 3-0 home win against Sutton United. Here's a real blast from the past, another one. Connor Simpson, he scored twice for Marsk United in their 2-0 win at Chasetown. Lewis Alessandra, he netted for South Shields in their 3-1 defeat at Warrington Town in the FA Trophy. Come on, Mike. Let's have this one. Manny Mampala scored a hat-trick for Hyde United as they hammered Bamber Bridge 7-0 the weekend. Manny Mampala hat-trick, eh?
You could say that they gave them a hiding.
I'll give you that one. Actually.
Okay.
You'll have that in the end. Yes, so yeah, fair play, lad. He found his level, shall we say. And just one little bit of news we missed last week, actually. Adam Murray, he's left his assistant manager role at Besiktas following Valerian Ismail's sacking. Yeah, I completely forgot he was even there. It's mental to think that Adam Murray, who was playing for us in the National League, was assistant manager at Besiktas in Turkey.
Yeah.
Crazy
so there
stuff.
You go.
But there you go. And that's it for this week's episode. All done, Mike. Thanks very much for joining me. Thanks once again to the London Bench for supporting the podcast this season. In terms of upcoming episodes, by the time you listen to this, I don't think I will have got the Christian Dennis interview out yet because I've had a few issues trying to get the sound lined up on the 2 files I've got. I won't bore anyone with the details, but it was a bit complicated to record that because I only had one mic, so I had to record some on my phone, so it sounds a bit weird. But hopefully, if that doesn't get sorted, then we'll try and get it out at some point towards the end of the week, or maybe at the weekend, or maybe do it on the Sunday. And in terms of upcoming episodes, we will be doing a preview, obviously, for the Walsall game next week. And then for the Salford game, we'll probably do one for that as well, because we're both going to that one, aren't we, I think, Mike? So,
yeah.
Another one to line up there. And then we're into the World Cup, and all the fixtures go a bit weird, don't they, I think, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, interesting to see what happens. Right, that's it. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Cheers.
Up the Blues.
Up the Blues.